All right, so our next example is asking us to write in standard form. So that means that we will be foiling our factored sets together. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 3 will give us 6x. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. And negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. And then we want to combine like terms. So that would be 4x squared minus 4x minus 15. And then, so again, multiplying by foiling. So 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 6 is negative 18x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. And then we will combine like terms. So 3x squared minus 16x minus 12. So those would be our answers in standard form. And then the next question is asking us what's the relationship between factored form and standard form for these two problems. So if we're looking at this, our A in front here is no longer 1, so that's something that we want to recognize. So as I'm comparing 4 to my numbers here, we should notice that 2 times 2 gives us this front number, and then we still have negative 5 times 3 giving us the last number. Same thing on this one. 3 and 1 are factors of the first term, and then 2 and negative 6 are factors of the last term. So that's our relationship. Okay, so when A is not 1, in our factored form, we have 2 factors of A. So I'm going to say the first term in standard form. So let's start with that. So in standard form, the first term has factors of the first terms in factored form. Okay. So we're still looking for 2 numbers that multiply to be the first term. Okay. And then for our last term, we are looking for 2 numbers that multiply to be that. Oops. And when we simplify, they still need to add to be the middle term. So the factoring rules when A is not 1 is going to be a little bit different. And there's actually 2 methods that we can use. We can use just the guess and check method, or there is something called factoring by grouping. So if we're going to factor by grouping, these are the rules for it. So again, I'll let you kind of read through those. If you want to take notes on them, go ahead and pause the video and do that. Okay, so and then we're going to go through an example together. Okay, so if we're going to use the factoring by grouping method, we're going to start by taking the first term times the last term. So I'm going to take 3x squared times negative 12. So that will give us negative 36x squared. And then we need factors of that term that will add to be this middle term. So again, if we get stuck, sometimes it's just best to start by writing down the factors. So we know that 1 times 36 will give us 36, but we can exclude that one right away because we're trying to get to 16. So if we try 2 next, so if we take 36 divided by 2, that would give us 18. So I know that 2 and 18 are going to be a factor, and those are also going to have an x with it. Okay. And remember, one of these is going to have to be negative, but I'm going to wait to decide that. We also have 6, so we know that 6x and 6x will get us 36. We have 4x and 9x. And let's see, we did 2 and 18. 3 and 12 would be the other one, so 3x and 12x. So again, we're just looking for the set that's going to give us this middle term. So remember, one of these terms has to be negative, and we're trying to get to 16. So 12 minus 3 isn't going to help us. Same thing, 9 minus 4 isn't going to help us. 6 and 6 will give us 0 if we subtract. So we're looking at this first set that I wrote down, so the 2 and 18. And we would want the 18 to be negative. So that way when we add them, we'll get a negative 16. So once we have identified the set of factors that we want, we're going to replace the middle term with these new factors. So I'm going to rewrite this. So we'll have 3x squared, and then I'm going to replace this with my new factors. So a positive 2x and a minus 18x, and then minus 12. And then now we're going to group the first two and the last two terms together. Okay, so I'm looking at, again, the first set and the second set together. So from the first two terms, we want to decide what the greatest common factor is. So from both of these, I can factor out an x. And then if we factor out an x, we will have 3x plus 2 left. And then I go to my second set, and I'm going to do the same process. So I'm going to decide what I can factor out of both of these terms. And remember, our first term always has to be positive. So that means that I'm going to, at the very least, factor out a negative since it's negative. And the highest number that divides into both 18 and 12 will be 6. So we're going to factor out a negative 6. And if we factor out a negative 6, then we will have positive 3x plus 2 left. Then I'm looking to see that my parentheses match. So if they do match, that's exactly what we want, and then we can continue. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to factor out that entire set of parentheses. So we're going to factor out 3x plus 2, and then the numbers in front, since we're taking this group away from each term, is going to be what's left. So I'm going to have x minus 6 left. And that's how our group would factor. Now the second method to factor these is going to be just kind of guess and check. So if we have 3x squared minus 16x minus 12, the way that we would guess and check is we're going to list all the factors of our first term. So that would be 1 and 3, and then they would each have an x with it. And then all the factors of our second term. So we have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and then one set is going to have to be negative. And then we are just picking which ones we think might work. So if I write down my parentheses, now we're kind of lucky because this first term, there's only 2 sets of factors. So we are going to have just a 3x here and then a 1x. And then because this sign here in the middle is a negative, that means I'm going to have a positive sign and a negative sign. But we're just kind of guessing what it might be at this point. Okay. So if I choose 1 and 12 and I put them in, and again I'm just kind of guessing which order that I would put them in. So if we write out 1 and 12, to check to see if it works, we're multiplying the last terms together. So we're taking 3x times negative 12. So that would give us negative 36x. And then we multiply the inside terms together. So 1 times x would be 1x. And then we're adding these to see if we get this middle term. So if I add this, this is negative 35x, which is not our middle term. So that means that I picked the wrong set of factors. So then I would have to go back and try again. So if you're going to use this method, I would definitely use a pencil so that you can erase instead of a pen. Okay. So, but if we try again, so again, we would have 3x and x. And if I just go to my next set, so 2 and 6, again, we would multiply the last set together. So 3x times 6 would be 12x. And if I kind of wait to do my sign, sometimes that's better, and then I can kind of choose what sign I want to see if it'll work in here. So, but this one does have to be positive no matter what. So I would be choosing the sign for my second number. So 2 times 6 is, 3x times 6 is 18. And then 2 times 6 gives us 12. We're multiplying the outside and the inside. There we go. So 18 plus 2x is going to give us 20, but if I subtract them, we would have a 16, which is what we want, and then we need it to be negative, so that means our 18 would have to be negative. So that means 6 has to be negative, and our 2 would have to be positive. And then this set of factors would work. So we ended up with the same answer no matter which method we picked. So the method that you want to use is going to be up to you. Personally, I like the grouping method, but I know some people prefer the guess and check method. So like I said, at this point, it's just going to be a personal preference. So in the next set of videos, when we do more examples, I will try to show both methods, but most of the time I'm going to be using the factor by grouping method.